I am over the moon excited to have Sarah Elizabeth here with me today. She is an executive director of a nonprofit, a CPA by trade, and an author of an incredible book about awakening the leader within yourself and stepping into your most authentic self. And I'm reading this book right now. It is called When the White Picket Fence is No Longer Enough. I love the title. The title really grabbed me, Sarah. I was like, oh, what is that? Who is that? And being I have a white picket fence at my house, and I'm like, ooh, there's something that I need to pay attention to. And I have been loving your book, so empowering. It really is an empowerment journey of a book that helps one step into their leadership. And so I thought, all right, Sarah, got to have you on the Leadership Summit. So it's great to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Reading your book, powerful, powerful book. You are an excellent writer in conveying very deep emotion that is very vulnerable and can be confronting because I was reading it, I was like crying, like, oh my goodness, such a powerful story. And when I read your book, it was like, oh, she is a powerful leader that is leading from her own authentic soul path purpose. And so I'm very, very excited to have you part of this leadership summit because this is what it is about. And so we will begin our conversation with, what does leadership mean to you?
I think you touched on it a little bit just in the bits that you've gathered from my book. To me, a leader really means being able to step into your authentic and vulnerable place in this world and lead not necessarily by telling, but by demonstrating both of our strengths and our weaknesses to empower those around us.
Absolutely. And you've certainly done that and you've modeled that for your children and your community and yourself, starting with self. And so do you actually consider yourself a leader?
So that's an interesting question. In my entire professional role for, most of the last 20 years, I have been in a leadership role. So on from a technical perspective, yes, I've been a boss and I have technically been a leader. And I would like to think that most of the time I was doing that job in a way that was respectful and honorable around the people that were working with me. But I think truly stepping into that leadership capacity really began once I started to look within myself to decide who I wanted to be in this world and started to lead not from my position of authority, but rather from that authentic version of myself. So I think now, yes, I would consider myself a leader, even though I guess on paper I've been a leader for a long time. I think we have different categories of leading and different ways of leading. And I'm glad and grateful to be stepping into a new era, I would say, of my leadership capacity.
Oh, well, that's perfect intersection here for the next question I have. The next question is, what does new paradigm leadership mean to you?
Right. So I think a new paradigm of leadership is exemplified by a leader not trying to divide the roles between leader and the worker bees, so to speak. I think we're so used to seeing a disparity between those roles, and that division was really used for power. And I think the new paradigm of leadership is about recognizing strengths of all of the individuals around us, whether it's in our home or our workplace or just society in general, and also recognizing our own weaknesses so that together we can lead as a uniformed and unified group rather than having different levels of leadership and groups of people, whatever that societal standard is.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said. I agree. Redefining those roles. And how do you think we're going to be able to redefine those roles in our day-to-day life?
I think it's going to have to start within. I think if we immediately start saying, well, they need to do it this way and then I can redefine the roles, right in that statement, we're recognizing that the problem exists outside of us. And I think if we really want to start redefining the roles, we really have to start within and recognize where our internal strengths are, where our internal weaknesses are, where our light comes from, and also that shadow side of us, so that when we interact with other people, we can recognize their strengths and weaknesses and not look at either as a positive or a negative, but an area of opportunity for us to make better alignment with each other. I do believe that the world has to be in balance. And so creating a dynamic that shares in the equilibrium of strengths, weaknesses, lights, darks, I think in that capacity, we'll be able to unite people and bring them together. But it really ultimately starts with recognizing that within ourselves before we go and try and tell what other people should or shouldn't be doing.
I love that, bringing the focus back to self. And I believe that we are microcosms of the macrocosm. And so when we come back to self, we're working on that microcosmic level that then affects the macro, right? And when we do that, then it actually gives an example and a modeling for other people to do that. And so yeah, I love your answer. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. And so when you think of power, what do you think of? Like, what does power mean to you?
So immediately, I think of every single superhero movie, right? Where in every superhero movie, there is always that battle between good and evil. And if power is in the hands of the good, then everything's wonderful. And if power is in the hands of that who is evil, I hate to use that term. I'd like to say more misaligned or misguided or a lost soul, then it can become a slippery slope a little bit as to what that power is going to be used for. And I think that that's really just an exaggeration of, what can happen in our daily lives. So when we are given an ounce of power, we can choose to utilize that to encourage good, to spread kindness, to spread compassion, or we can kind of hold on to it within ourselves and start to fight to protect what we have, which means we have to fight against others who are trying to take that. So to me, power is, again, this fine line, this fine dance that we have to walk between recognizing what it can do and what it can change, and also recognizing that it has to be handled in a very careful way so that we're utilizing it to maximize our potential that's going to benefit the greatest number of people around us rather than just trying to hold on to it for ourselves.
I love that. I love your superpower analogy because I'm really into superpowers too. I mean, wounds to wisdom to superpowers. So it's like,
Right.
my thing. And oh, I love that answer so much. And just to kind of talk about the villain part, the evil part, I've been thinking a lot about that. Like, is it that people are just really wounded and they're acting from their wounds, or are they actually evil? And I still don't know the answer to that question. What is your feeling on that?
So, I am a firm believer that at our core, everybody has a goodness to them, but there is such thing as free will, and we all get to choose how we respond to certain circumstances. So I don't think it's as cut and dry, to say there's good and there's evil. I think that we're exposed to a lot in life, and it can be a variety of things, from death to abuse to just always feeling like you're never keeping up with the people around you. There's just a whole variety of life that can come at you, and ultimately we have that choice within ourselves to decide how we're going to handle it. I actually just wrote a little blog post this morning, actually, saying that I believe that we have both an angel and a devil inside of us, and it's which one we're choosing to empower that's going to represent how we show up in this world. And it was alluding to the fact that, again, you need both the light and dark within our lives. We all have our shadows. And, when we choose to try and pretend that they don't exist, we become defensive and immediately point out everybody else's shadows. But when we become one with our own shadows, then I can see the shadows in with you, and I can give you a high five for choosing to not let them consume you, right? I alluded to the fact namaste, and in yoga often means my light within me bows to the light within you. And I said, well, why not my shadows within me bow to the shadows within you as well, right? We're all recognizing that we're flawed human beings. And I think if we start admitting that and we start recognizing that it's okay to have that darkness within us, it will empower us to choose to go towards the light, because we're not fighting or hiding or protecting anything. We're all just recognizing that we're flawed humans doing the absolute best that we can. But
I love
ultimately,
that.
again, I think it comes down to choice of which, are you going to feed the angel or the devil? Which side are you going to do?
I love that so much. And we all have a shadow, and the shadow follows us everywhere we go. It's like it's better to befriend the shadow than to try to run from it, because it'll just keep chasing you. I just did
Yes.
all these amazing pictures. Had my son's girlfriend take some photos of me at the beach, and we took photos of ourselves and our shadows. And I'm getting ready to do a post about shadow as well, and working with your shadow. So this is very relevant and topical. I find that always these conversations are meant to be exactly at the right time, because my son's girlfriend's like, why do you want all these pictures of you and your shadow? I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a blog post about the shadow and da 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 da. It's just been something I've been thinking about. And she's like, oh, that sounds really amazing. So I agree with you. And I mean, it is a very big question. And we could make this leadership conversation all about just what we're talking about now,
Right.
right? It's a really
Yes.
big thing, but I think it's a really relevant to stepping into leadership and not getting caught up in the black and white thinking, right? Because we can do that. Oh, are you an angel or are you a demon? But actually using it as a guide is what I'm hearing from you. It's like, are we going towards the light? Or are we coming from our wounded place and falling into shadow and doing a shadow dance? And so, yeah, great. Oh, love
Right.
that. That was good.
Yeah.
Did
I
you want
think
to
it
add
just
anything
makes
to
us,
that?
I was just going to say, I think it makes us point the finger at others less when we have already pointed the fingers at ourselves, right? And then we also don't have anything to hide, because nobody's going to say anything to us that we're not either aware of, have processed, or are in the process of processing, right? So I think it just takes some barriers down between us by recognizing our own faults, so that we don't have to focus on others.
Well, it's that 100% responsibility piece, isn't it? It's like
Right.
taking responsibility, which is a quality of stepping into your leadership. I wholeheartedly believe when we can take responsibility, then we're truly stepping into our role as a leader of ourselves. Because it's a big thing to take responsibility for your
It is.
shadows and your wounds and all the things that are wrong. But I think you're absolutely onto it when you say, then you're less likely to point fingers, because then you can like truly hold empathy and compassion.
Right. Correct.
Mm. Love that.
Hmm.
Thank you. That was
You're welcome.
beautiful. Well said. Mm. Let's see. My next question is, what does the words awaken the new feminine paradigm mean to you?
To me, the feminine paradigm is increasing our art of allowance. So it's allowing to go with the flow a little bit more, within life and whatever circumstance we find ourselves in, rather than trying to force an issue, an agenda, an outcome. And I think when you apply that into a leadership perspective, it requires you as the leader to set your ultimate agenda aside and allow it to form naturally. So while you can be working towards an end result, allowing that flexibility and flow, especially when you're working in a dynamic with others, to go slightly different than what you've expected or planned, creates the opportunity, I think, for new options or directions that you never even saw coming. And I do believe that there's always got to be that balance. So I love the divine, I always consider the divine feminine, but that feminine paradigm, but you also clearly need that, that masculine side as well. But I think we've shifted a little bit too far where we need to bring it back to that state of allowance and flow.
Yeah, great. I love how you say it. They're both important, but there's just a bit of an out of balance with it and bringing that back to balance. And I'm hearing a reoccurring theme in your answers is that it is all about the balance and the alignment. And I agree as well. Being, I've got two beautiful sons, teenagers, boys, and my husband. So I live with three boys. Really, I mean, one man and two boys, but three boys essentially. And that masculine energy is really important and really sacred. And so I love that you brought attention to the fact that we need to honor the men, we need to honor the boys, but bringing that balance is really essential. So great. Did you have anything to add to that?
I think it's just I'm glad that you shared your dynamic and your support of that thought as well. I think we've gone a long time without that feminine presence truly in a leadership capacity, especially, but in the world at large. But I do think that there's danger in focusing only on that, because that ultimately just creates that shift for the masculine of not knowing where they belong, not knowing where they lead, not knowing where they serve, and having that sword and knowing when to use it, or knowing that it's there and feeling confident in the flow of life that you don't need to use it, is really where that balance of power ultimately comes in. And I think the goal of what we should be trying to shift, our leadership style and paradigm towards.
I love that. Having the sword and knowing when and when not to use it. So true. And we can apply this to like everyday experiences of telling your teenagers to bring their raincoat, right? And just speak from experience, to go to
Mm-hmm.
school camp, bring your raincoat. And they say, oh, I don't need my raincoat. Bring your raincoat. And, I witnessed myself having to step into that masculine energy of no, put the raincoat in your bag. Like that
Mm-hmm.
forceful, assertive male dominance. Because if I hadn't, he would not have brought his raincoat to camp. And it
Right.
rained. And so I'm so glad that I did that. If I was my divine, sacred feminine, I might just go with the flow and support his needs of what he wants to do. And there's a time and place for that. But then there's a time and place to step into that masculine energy as well. So I'm all about sacred divine feminine, but also the sacred divine masculine, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. So, what is your vision of, you know, what beautiful? Oh, wait, hang on. Sorry, I have to edit this because I've lost my place in the questions. Having too much fun here. Oh, okay. My next question is, what are your top three qualities of a great leader?
So my top three, and I'm going to use this word a little bit interchangeably, but I would start with faith or an intuition. I don't necessarily mean religion, but faith in both the greater flow of life, but also within your own capacity to listen to your gut instincts and trust that. So I do think faith and intuition is incredibly important. And then I would add courage and compassion. I think, again, even touching on, well, actually, my top two right there, right? Faith and intuition as your divine feminine, and courage you would put in that divine masculine category, where you need to have that ability to center yourself enough to say, I feel like we need to be heading in this direction, and have the courage to help rally people around you that are going to support, expand, and enhance, that direction that has been established. And then compassion, I feel like that's just something in general that we need more of in this world and in our leadership, is to understand that everybody's dealing with their own dynamic, and to show compassion towards another person as they're trying to find their own way, both internally and where they fit in this place, in their world, is just essential, so that you can create a dynamic that wants to lead together rather than just follow one particular person or mindset.
Beautiful answer. Oh, I love that. And, because I'm reading your book right now, it's just so beautiful how when you speak, it's like how you write. And you're such a you're amazing at weaving together words to describe your emotions and feelings. You're really a master at that. So I'm loving everything that you're saying. Beautifully
Thank you.
said. Everything. I'm like, oh yes, I aligned to that. Love it. Okay, so this is my favorite. Oh no, no, sorry. I keep jumping ahead. I think I'm so
Nope, that's
excited
okay.
to hear your answer for the last question that I'm like, oh no, no, we're not there yet. Okay, so wonderful qualities of a great leader. I agree. Who are your most admired leaders and why?
This is a tricky one for me to answer, and I actually think of my son when he likes something. Right now, he's into trains or music. And if you asked him what his favorite train was, he would say, well, all of them, of course. Like, he cannot pick just one thing that's his favorite. And so, I feel a little bit like that when that question's asked. I love anybody and anything that can really challenge me to force my beliefs or mindsets to expand and to validate them. I just love that ability to learn and grow. So, if I was to pick authors, I love Carolyn Meese and Alan Watt would probably be two of my most inspirational people, because they challenge your mind to think outside of the box and outside of yourself. If I think of a leader or who I would want to emulate, I would think of like a Joan of Arc, right? And going back to that sword, there was a woman who moved an entire nation because she heard a voice that she couldn't share with anybody else. It was that intuitive knowing that she had to do this, and she carried that sword and went into battle and moved soldiers because she believed so much in her cause. So, again, I don't know if I could pick just one, but I would say those are three people that I deeply admire and respect. And I would say I would love to emulate them as I continue this journey that I'm on as well.
I love that. Wonderful. That's very inspiring. And I love that it shifts and it changes depending on where you're at, like your son with the trains. And I agree, same. I mean, when I see a leader that inspires me to transform and see the world differently, or the situation that I'm going through in a different way, that opens me to greater consciousness and expansion. Like, wow, that's an incredible, incredible thing. And so, yeah, I agree with you. This was actually a really hard question for me to answer as well. I was like, oh my goodness. Wow, what a great question, huh?
Right. Right. It's challenging. It's challenging to pinpoint something that can have so many different areas of impact, in a wide variety of your life. I mean, we're such complex beings. So to pick just a few that touch on the entirety of you, that's challenging. So I think we're blessed to be around and to have had in this lifetime and previous, lifetimes, so many incredible thinkers, dreamers, believers that have just allowed us all to bend our thoughts in ways that we may have never done had they not, shared their thoughts and words. So, yeah,
So what I'm hearing from you is new thought leaders.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be new as in right now, but just new as in ahead of their time, right? Whatever time period that was, just new. Yes,
Innovators,
absolutely.
movers and shakers.
Yeah.
Oh, that just lit me up inside. Thank you. I
You're
love this
welcome.
conversation. I knew I was going to love it.
Yeah.
I knew it because I love you and what you're doing and who you are and the leader that you are, the innovator that you are. Yeah. Those of you that are listening, get her book. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Oh, good. I'm enjoying it so much. The link will be below. Okay, so here's the question I've been really eager to ask is how would you change the world? Like, how do you think we need to change the world? And if you were made leader of the world, what would be your plan? And what are the first things that you feel you would want to change?
Oh, I would want to change.
I
Well,
know
so again, if
it's a
I
really
was,
big question. It's a really big
yeah,
question, but just, what comes up for you straight away?
well, I think if I was the leader and I had that opportunity, I would probably send everybody home in silence for a little while and just, go and allow them to get centered with themselves one on one and really decide what is it that we are trying to create here, and for those of us who are blessed to have children in our lives, what type of a world do we want to leave behind for our children? One of the most frustrating aspects for me is that do as I say, not as I do type mindset, or the one that we can get upset where we can have inappropriate items posted on the back of bumper stickers on cars and whatnot, but we don't want our children to emulate those conversations and styles. So I think, we have to really go back to our internal space and say, what is it that we want to leave behind? Forget the traditions, forget those societal expectations of what life should and shouldn't look like, and really decide what matters most, and to me, finding that internal state of peace regardless of what is happening in my little microcosm of a world or the world around me, and being able to center in and find that sense of peace and that sense of love within myself brings in a level of trust, not just in a greater plan, in some type of divine plan, but it gives me trust in those around me, because I do believe, as we had touched upon, that there is a greater good within inside all of us, but I feel like it's just under so many layers of so many years of ridiculous expectations and mindsets that we need to shed a lot of that before we can determine who we really are on the inside. So I don't
Mm.
know if that really answered that that question as well as I had wanted it to, but I hope that resonated.
Oh, I love that answer so much. Like, send everybody, what just came to my mind was like, send everyone to Vipassana for 10 days.
Right? Yes.
When you said that, I was like, yeah, what if the whole world, went and did Vipassana, which is a Buddhist meditation where you're in silence for 10 days and you have to go within and
Right.
breathe and witness. And it was a very healing experience for me the first, second, and third time that I did it. I've done it 3 times in my life and it was incredible. And I thought, ooh. what a good idea. Send
Right.
everyone in silence for 10 days.
Mhm. You know, and I will share a lot of my internal reflection was started with my children. I had shared with you right before we started recording. I have two children, a 13-year-old and an 11-year-old, and my 11-year-old son is autistic, and he has the most beautiful and simplistic view of the world. And societal expectations and societal norms mean nothing to him. You know, even those rules that we just inherently know, they're not just immediately understood by him. So, because I'm watching him constantly question and try and understand why we do things the way we do, it makes me stop and ask, should we even be doing this? How important is that we've always done? We place a lot of emphasis on, you know, I'll pick on a materialistic style birthday, right? Where it has the perfect balloons and the perfect birthday cakes and the, over the top celebrations. And here comes this little guy, and he is just happy with a plate of cookies and one present, and he is good to go, and there's an exaggeration of it. But in watching him, everything that I have taken for granted and just assumed was the way life was supposed to go is not the way he thinks life should go. And the more I would try and force him into our little world, the more he rejected it until I started to look through his lens and really started to question what matters and what doesn't. So he definitely kickstarted my little journey as far as really navigating and reflecting on almost every single experience and interaction that I have.
That is such a beautiful that's such a beautiful thing to bring up. My children have brought me to a spiritual path as well on a greater level, and I mean, they just mirror back so much, but you've brought back a memory of mine from when my kids were really, really little. They were toddlers, and I decided to do this training called the Incredible, what was it? The Incredible Years Parenting Training. It was a free offering through the school. And I was like, oh, yes, I can always learn new skills on being a good parent, because I'm an
Yeah.
overachiever. And oh my God, it was incredible. The Incredible Years Parenting Program. It was created in Seattle, Washington, and
Okay.
it was offered here in New Zealand. Oh, was amazing. If you are listening and you have this offer to do this training, do it. Don't think twice. It was one of the best trainings I've ever done. It was so good. And I actually wanted to be an Incredible Years programming teacher and facilitator, but that was a thought then, and now I'm in a different place. But um, there were two women that were in the group, and one of them was, she baked the cookies and cleaned the house and did everything perfectly. And I'm sure her house was spotless. And she always had the cookies and she always had the muffins and everything that you're talking about. She was that mom. And then, and actually sitting right opposite her was another mom that did none of those things. Like she actually said, she goes, I do none of those things. My house is a mess. Sometimes I make cookies, but no, not really, like, however, what was distinctly different between the two is the mom that had the messy house and didn't bake the cookies and do the societal norms of what you're supposed to do had a better relationship with her toddlers because she was taking the time to connect in with them and her priorities were in the right place. And I was sitting right in the middle of these two, and it was like a hall of mirrors of, because I was, a new mom. I think my
Mhm.
kids were like 2 and 4 or something. And I was like, oh, and it was just this big aha moment of it's not about the clean house. It's not about the cookies and the muffins. It's about taking the time to connect, to be in that place of love and I reprioritized everything because before I was the trying to do the whole, perfect cookies, clean
Mhm.
house, everything. Like,
Yep.
and
Guilty as
as
charged too. Yes.
I'm a recovering overachiever.
Yes.
So
Yes.
wonderful. I love that. Is there anything else, any last and final words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
I would just encourage listeners to courageously remove their own masks, right? And to start small. It doesn't have to be something that you do immediately, but just find little aspects within your daily life where you can just pause and center yourself, whether it's hand on heart and stomach or in the shower when you take a breath, and just say, who am I outside of all of the roles that I'm playing? And I think once we start to answer that within ourselves, then we decide who we truly are as an individual, not as a mom, not as a boss, not as a leader, not as a sister. We just find out who we are. And then we're able to step out into the world and lead in a capacity that is in alignment and authentic with ourselves. And I know that sounds scary, but I think the world around you will start to crave that authenticity and believe that they too can start to show those vulnerable sides of themselves and step into their authentic power as well. But it all starts with, letting down our guards a little bit and showing our truest versions of self.
I love that. I love that. I'm just finishing up, as you know, my Wounds to Wisdom Oracle deck, and I'm going through the editing process, and we're editing true self with authentic self. And I've been thinking about that. And she's like, oh, do you want to use authentic self or true self? I'm like, well, both are true, aren't they?
Yep.
And it's all about aligning with our true self, which is our authentic self. And you just summed it right up, a full circle of that alignment with who we really are, and taking that mask off and stepping into the leadership of being our authentic self in the world, and not falling prey, or victim to all the expectations that get placed upon us, which is what your book is about. So, how do we get your book? And do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, When the White Picket Fence is No Longer Enough is a teaching memoir. It really started out as my way to heal myself on my journey. A lot of it is really excerpts right from my journal and diary as I was trying to navigate a life that I had built that was beautiful and wonderful and had incredible people in it. And I felt completely lost and alone inside of it. And that's a very lonely place to be when you're surrounded by people you love and who love you, but you just can't find yourself. So it's broken up into three parts: heart healing and hope. And it really walks you through how I had to dismantle who I thought I was, to rebuild who I truly am, and the journey that I took on that process, and the impact that my children and my little family unit has had in helping me find my voice and stepping out and sharing that voice with the world. So you can find it on my website. It's www.sarahelizabeth.icu. And then you can also purchase it on Amazon as well.
Great, great. And for all of you that are listening, there's a podcast episode on my Wounds to Wisdom to Superpowers podcast, diving deeper into her beautiful story, her wounds to wisdom to superpowers story. So I'll put the link below for that as well. And definitely listen, because her story is incredible and very relatable. And what I love about your book is you find ways, as you're emoting of what you're going through, it reflects and mirrors back what the reader needs to hear. And so those of you that are feeling drawn to this book, it will be exactly what you need to hear and what you need to read. So, highly recommended. And also, do you have a free offering?
I do. So if you visit my website, you can log on. You can get both a free sample of the book, and then there will be an ingratitude page where you can answer a few short questions, and then you will receive a link to download a notes journal, which will help you as you read my book go through and digest, some of the stories that I share and reflect on your own journey. So it's a journal prompt ebook that will, I think help you navigate, your own journey as you listen to mine.
I love this so much. I'm already like, there's certain people in my life, soul clients that I know are going to love you, love your book, and get so much value from this conversation and from our Wounds to Wisdom conversation. And so, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your soul path purpose journey. And thank you for bringing your gifts to the world. Um, you are making this world a better place by being your authentic self.
Thank you so much for having me on today. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Namaste. I see the light within
Namaste.
you, and I honor the light within you, and I honor the shadow dance that you've
Mhm.
been through, and your shadow and your courage and your leadership to embrace your shadow dance and to embrace your shadow and transform those shadows and those wounds into your wisdom and now bringing your superpowers to the world.
You.